everyone, welcome back. I'm here to chat about books as I do, but this video is just going to be me talking about all the books that I've read this year. I'm going to be doing a ranking system of 1 through 5. We're going to start off with the worst books, so like the lowest ratings to the highest ratings. I'm just using a scale because that's a very typical like way that the ratings are scaled on like Goodreads and Storygraph, of which I am both on, so like add me on there. I'll like leave the links in the description or something. Anyways, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Before I start, oh my god, I want to show you guys something. My friend, my beautiful friend Farheen, she's literally my world. She's so cute. She sent me, or she's my like pen pal, and today I finally got her letter and it is beautiful. Okay, look at this. It's this dark green. It's gorgeous, and then there's a wax seal, and oh my god, I will cherish this till the day that I die, and it feels so nice. This is such like a nice envelope. Not to geek, but like I really love my friends, and like I read the letter and it made me like bawl my eyes out. I literally just want to show that because I made me so happy this morning when I saw it, and I was very pleased to see that. Much love to Farheen. Shout out. I love having pen pals. Anyways, on to the video. I just really wanted to show that. Yeah. Okay, the video. I am gonna start. I had to take notes on this because I had to process all of what I was reading. I have very terrible memory, so I like didn't remember like half of the content that I was reading, so I had to do a bit of refreshers, which is why this kind of took a minute to come out, but that's okay. The first book that we're going to talk about is The Lover by Marguerite Duras. I hated this book. I hated this book. I think I would have enjoyed it a lot better if I read it in the original language that it was written in, which was French, but I read an English translation. This kind of contributed to a lot of it because a lot of what I hated about it was the writing felt so juvenile. It felt really amateur, and I was surprised when I found out that the author wrote this in her 70s, and I was like, that's, but like the main plot point was there was a grown-ass adult, like a Chinese man, a grown-ass adult. I was also confused about this. Anyway, whatever, that's not the point. A grown-ass 30-year-old man dating and having sex with a 15-year-old. I was never gonna root for it, ever. And I like, again, I'm trying not to spoil too much, but there's a whole thing with the ending, or how it ended, that I was like, oh brother. I didn't enjoy this book at all. And I do enjoy like stream of consciousness like type of writing. I have an example for that later that I enjoyed, but this is very disjointed and it felt very terrible to read. But I only really liked like a part of the familial aspect as well as the queer part of it. That was like 4 pages in total. So I hated reading this. I really did not enjoy this book. I think this was definitely like one of the I only like rated 2 books this low. 1.5 stars out of 5. Maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I read it in the original language, but unfortunately I don't know French, and I'm okay with never reading this ever again. Okay, the second book that I read this year, it was called I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. It had a decent start at the beginning, but it very slowly got worse, and it was complicated, but in a way that was not comprehensible at all. Like, it was just very terrible to understand, like very difficult to understand, and I did not like the ending at all. It was not a good read, and it's like one of the few books that I can say I didn't like this year. It kind of felt like it wanted to be more than it was. Like, it really wanted to be this introspective kind of profound thing, but it didn't hit the mark for me personally. This was also 1.5 stars out of 5. Okay, next. Okay, some portions of this video is going to be touching on manga or like written and visual aspects of like reading, so some of that I'm just gonna try to keep going like really quickly, just letting you guys know because this is kind of where it starts. Okay, the next one that I wanted to talk about was Stitches. This is kind of well known because Junji Ito, whatever. Junji Ito drew like a lot of drew the visual aspects of the short stories, so it was in tandem, but I just thought it was really boring. I thought the art was lovely, but the stories were okay-ish and it wasn't really fun for me to read. I would say this is just about like a 2 stars for me. I feel kind of bad, but also I don't know, I just didn't really love it that much, but I didn't expect to love it because it was very brief, but I didn't think any of the stories were necessarily enjoyable or engaging. It felt like it wanted to, and this is coming from someone who gets like very paranoid really easily, and I get really fucking scared of stuff like so easily, but like this just didn't do it for me, and it should have done it for me, I think, because I'm just a very like paranoid person. I'd say an example of that was I was watching like a Smosh video. I think it was Amanda and Shane, and they were reading like creepypastas. That's where it came into my brain because this happened recently. But they were talking about like they were reading the story of the rake, and that fucking scared the shit out of me. And I was like listening to them read it at like 2 a.m. and then I like listened to it for like a minute, and then I freaked the fuck out, and I just like paused it and I found like something cheery and happy to watch. Because see, so I feel like stuff like that like should get me, but it just didn't. But I'm going on a tangent, but yeah, 2 stars for Stitches. Okay, this was also a manga. Next I read Love in Focus, and I read the complete collection, so it's just all in one, but it's only 3 volumes. Anyways, dude, it was so fast and not fun. I think the only part that I enjoyed about it was just like the art. I thought the art was really beautiful, which is why I picked it up in the first place. I just liked photography. I just like the photography aspect. Like I thought that was really interesting, but I just thought it was really fast and it wasn't really fun to read. Okay, next I read by Grand Central Station. I sat down and wept. Don't know the author's name. For some reason in my notes I didn't take them. I'm really sorry. Elizabeth Smart, that was her name. Anyways, it was not really memorable, and like I feel like, again, like sometimes I think there's books or short stories or things that should hit for me, but they just don't. Well, for this book specifically, I think when I was reading this, I was very like sad, I guess. I was dealing with a lot of like thoughts and like changes with the way I viewed like love and romance and like experience things like that. And this book, I feel like it should have hit me hard because I was kind of in that mindset, but I could not get into the author's head about like the way she felt about love, despite the fact like I think objectively I have experienced the same thing. But like it was like she was very hysterical when love didn't go her way, but then she felt very empowered when love was going her way, and like I felt like that should have hit the mark for me, right? But it just didn't, and I felt that was kind of boring. I thought some prose in it was really like beautiful though, but it felt more self-indulgent than anything, so this is a 2.5 stars for me. Next I read A Daughter's Journey by Myra Lee Glass. It was just a short read, and I would say it's just okay. I picked it up initially because I've been trying to read up more, or because I wanted to read more about like the complexities of a mother-daughter relationship, and this was kind of geared towards that. It was not memorable. I think that's the only reason why it's ranked kind of low, because it just wasn't really memorable for me. This is a 2.5 stars again. No like particular shade though towards the writing or the book itself. I just think it's the fact that like nothing like is in my brain about it that kind of like doesn't make me want to put it higher. Next I read Orange. It was the future volume, like a future jump. It felt a bit unnecessary, but I had to I picked it up because I read the manga Orange, and I'll get into that, but bare minimum, I guess, like the bare bones of it, I really enjoyed Orange a lot, so I felt like I had to pick this up. It was just okay, 3 stars. It wasn't like too amazing, too cool, it just was a little unnecessary, but I really like the art style, and I really like I love the characters, so I didn't like mind. Okay, the next book that I read this year was The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. I think I need to give this book like a reread or something because I don't remember anything about it. I think some parts of it resonated with me because I'm an Asian person with a very complex relationship with my mother, and it made me think a lot more about my relationship with my mom, but I just could not tell you I felt like a resolution with the novel. Like the ending, I don't remember anything about it. I think some issues that I saw was there's not a lot of differentiation with all the mothers, despite the fact, or other than identifying them with their trauma, which I don't know, but all I also remember is that the husband sucked throughout the novel. That's really it. I would say this is 3 stars, but I would like to hope that my rating changes because I want to give it a reread eventually, because I think that this review is kind of doing it a disservice. 3 stars. Okay, the next book that I read, again, this is all manga. I'm just gonna get the manga, the rest of the, like some of the manga over with right now. I read Death Note. I did not finish it. I still haven't finished like some of the volumes, but I got the black edition, which is like, it's kind of set up with like 1 volume has 2 volumes of the original, so it's condensed down into like I think 6 volumes. I did not finish. I did not finish them. I will say though, I think I enjoyed volume 1 of the black edition more than the rest that I've read. So this is kind of my blanket statement for it. But the volume 1 of the black edition, Death Note, is 3.5 stars, and the rest of them, which was 2, 3, 4, and 5. I need to get 6. 2, 3, 4, and 5, it would be 3 stars for me. Next, I read Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector. Okay, parts of this felt like super convoluted, but I really enjoyed this. This is a stream of consciousness type of writing that I more so enjoy. I loved it a lot though, and I think I would need to reread it with my current mindset because I feel like I've grown a lot more since I read this, and I think it would kind of just connect more with me, like it would resonate a lot better with me now rather than the way it did then. The writing is very beautiful and it's very introspective. I think it would just serve me a lot better now. Again, best stream of consciousness writing that I've like read so far, like genuinely. This is the type of things that I enjoy. I think this is a 3.5 stars for me. The next book that I read was Ripe. This was, I can't remember who it's by, but this is about a woman who's living in Silicon Valley, I believe, and she's dealing with like, or she's kind of reeling and seeing firsthand like the way capitalism affects our society and stuff. So, is my camera focused? But this, what I really liked about this book was the physical manifestation of depression. It is shown as a black hole that is just following this woman around everywhere, and I really liked the way that was depicted and that was shown, and I really liked the way the book was separated into sections and stuff. The cover of the book is I think there were some aspects of pregnancy within this book, but I cannot remember for the life of me, but it would make sense because the cover has like a pomegranate, so it's like fertility, representative of fertility, and also the name is literally Ripe. I don't know, it's like definitely some like aspects toward like pregnancy, but they used like kind of terms about pomegranates and stuff throughout like the chapters as like time like moved and changed, which I thought was really cool. But again, I just kind of feel like weird about like not remembering aspects of the book. I would say this is also a 3.5 stars. Okay, the next book that I'm ranking is The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. I have to admit, this is kind of embarrassing, but I know some people here like go to my like school and like they have the same teacher as me. I had to read the book The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, but I accidentally picked up a copy of The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. I was supposed to read a different book, but I picked this one up instead. I don't really mind too much because I thought this book was really fun and I really deeply enjoyed it despite it being accidental. I enjoyed the way like the hubris was evident within the main character, the way that this was developed and was written, and how the invisibility aspect of the book was literal and it dehumanized him, but like once he was visible to the world again post oh, I can't say that, but once he's visible to the world, all the brutality against him, despite being kind of deserved because he kind of had a lot of violence, but that also stemmed from being invisible and dealing with the struggles of being invisible and kind of like learning that like this shit kind of sucked. But seeing like the violence that these people like kind of to like put on him as well, it became a reality and like a kind of a mirror into seeing their violence and like how their humanity kind of crumbled so fast. There was this portion of the book that reminded me of a movie. I cannot remember the name of the movie, but this man, he was blind and some people broke into his house, but he's a veteran and he has like very heightened kind of perceptions of the world because he's blind. And it kind of reminded me of that because there was this like one part where this guy, oh, that movie's terrible by the way, that movie's really gross, but there's this part of the book where this guy, where the invisible guy went into some guy's like house or work or something, and like the guy like heard like the slightest bit of change or noise or movement, and that freaked him out, and that's what it reminded me of. I thought this book was very fun to read. I actually don't know why I rated it like so low in my notes. I think I put it as a 3.5, but 4 stars out of 5. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Next, I read A Doll's House. This is by Henrik Ibsen. I quite enjoyed this little play. I had a lot of fun reading it for my AP Lit class, and I remember talking about it with my friend Riley, and we were talking about the book, and I was like, fuck this guy. There's one character that I hated so much, but like, I think it was the husband. It was the husband. But taking notes and analyzing books is so much fun for me personally, even if it was for a class, but I feel like that's kind of a more incentive to be more analytical with the book, or well, with the play, but either way. There were some amazing quotes with this play, and oh my god. The way men in this book yearned was like, it was too good. I can like literally pull up a quote because like this shit was actually like, oh my god, I love this part so much. More quietly, out of italics, so normal. When I lost you, all the firm earth under my feet vanished. Look at me, I'm a castaway on a wreck of a career. Like I did these like books a disservice. I put them as like 3.5, but I feel like that, like just like the way that I enjoyed that. Okay, I'm gonna bump that up. 3.75 stars, because that's also how Storygraph does it. They do like the little increments of 25. I'm okay with that. 3.75 stars for A Doll's House. Okay, this next book, I'm sticking to this ranking for sure, but I read Henry in June. This is a diary by Anais Nin. This book took me a really long time to read, and it was kind of obnoxious to read through, but I think it was very authentic, and it kind of displayed a lot of like more taboo experiences, especially towards like polygamy, kind of pushing out of like monogamy, and like more, I wouldn't say necessarily it was open relationships because there's a lot of aspects of cheating, but it kind of also played a lot into like just those themes of like so which I actually really quite enjoy reading about. I think I love it when books kind of experience more taboo like feelings and experiences, and I love when like women in books also like explore their eroticism and kind of go about the world like just kind of being very open about sexuality and desire and things like that. This book, Anais has a complicated relationship with a married couple. The married couple's names are Henry and June. Wow. And then she also has a husband, Hugo. And then she also had a weird like romantic sexual relationship with a man named Eduardo, that was like perfectly enamored by her. And I really enjoyed this book in a very literary aspect as well, like I said, in the way that she experienced like desire in relationships. I thought it was a really interesting diary. I would say it just took me a really long time to read. Like I think I really wish I could tell you, but I think I started this like early in the year, and then it took me to like months to finish it. I think this is probably, so I'm sticking with it. 3.5 stars out of 5. Okay, the next book that I read was The Metamorphosis and Other Stories by Franz Kafka. I have to be honest, I don't remember like half the stories in the book. The most memorable ones though were well, obviously Metamorphosis, duh. I think the next one was The Man Who Got Away, which was about a boy who got sent away by his family and he was like on a boat because he got a maid pregnant. I was like, what I remember is like, why is he getting sent away? Because I'm pretty sure this maid was like older than this kid, like by a lot. Like this kid was like a teenager, whatever. And he was trying to help this man that was working in the boat get kind of the treatment that he deserved from a higher up, but then he suddenly assumed like a position of privilege because a family member that was powerful was at the boat and like kind of claimed him then and there. And then I also really enjoyed In the Penal Colony, where a traveler is listening to a demonstration of a punishment system that happens through a machine that like essentially would etch the punishment or etch the crime onto a prisoner, and then they would eventually die. And I have to say that one was my personal favorite. It was like really grotesque and it was really gross and it was very well written, and I really liked that we were reading it in the perspective of the outsider, the traveler, because then we're just like seeing the guy be delusional about this like whole like punishment system and how it's like, yes, this is peak, this is ideal, this matches with like the commander, like which was a previous like commander or whatever. Reading it, like what the fuck is the same perspective as a guy that's also thinking like what the hell. It's all just like very fun, or not. Well, it was very fun for me to read. I very much enjoyed that one. I'm just gonna say overall like a 3.5 there, just for all the stories that are not accounted for. Either way, Franz Kafka is a very intelligent author and I really enjoy his work. So, okay, next I'm gonna be talking about Before the Coffee Gets Cold by... I can't remember, but I really enjoyed the various segments of this book because it's all like essentially like short stories within the same like setting, and it's all just like kind of cut into like pieces, and I really enjoyed that because I think that made it a lot easier for me to read and very digestible. And I just thought it was a gorgeous little book about time and going back into time, where like there's a rule within the book where nothing changes even if you go back in time, and I really enjoyed that part because despite the fact nothing could be changed, a lot of clarity was brought in within each short story, and I thought it was very impactful, and it was very digestible. I would say this is a 3.75 stars, and I wrote that down actually. So I was kind of using the increments of 25 from the get-go, but oh well. Next, I read All I Asking For Is My Body, and I cannot remember the author for the life of me, but I thought this was a very lovely like short story. It also touched upon like the filial aspects of things, because it kind of focused on two sons of a family. I really liked the setting of this as well. It was in Hawaii, and I really liked the usage of pidgin, which is which is a simplified version of language that allows for diverse like groups to communicate essentially. I really liked the way that came into play as well. I'm trying to remember what else, but I was very immersed in it and I really enjoyed this book. I picked it up on a whim. I think it was like $1 at a library by my school, and I really liked this. This was, I believe, it was taking place at a sugarcane plantation. I really enjoyed the aspects of the son's like futures and goals and stuff. One kid wanted to go into boxing, and that was like a really big thing for him. I really liked that. But yeah, I would say that was a 4-star in my book. It was like pretty short to read and stuff, but I really didn't mind. I really particularly liked it. But yeah, 4 stars for me. Okay, next I read, drumroll, If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura. Okay, this book again was kind of similar to me to like the way like things were kind of broken up into segments, but it was all like the same thing, but it was just like topic. But that's also kind of how chapters are kind of separated. But I really liked that. Like that there was a main focus for each chapter, the same way Before the Coffee Gets Cold had a main character for each story, or a main like story for each like chapter. But it was really fun to read, and I really enjoyed the simplicity of it, but also just like the way human connection was very prioritized, and he kind of developed a lot of gratitude. The main character developed a lot of gratitude for the world that I really, really enjoyed reading. And I just really liked like that. It gave me a lot of some perspective on like humanity and the pursuit of human connection, and just like some really, like, one thing that really stood out to me with it was like there was a whole aspect of the book where you had to give up stuff to live another day, but the whole world had to like give up the stuff, but like they wouldn't even know, it would just disappear from the world, right? I can't snap, whatever. But one of the things that he chose was like phones, and then he was like out and about, and like everyone's just on like reading a book, everyone's just talking to each other, being more present, being more active. And I thought that was very cute, like just like a subtle, not subtle, but it was a very like nice drop into the book, in my personal opinion. I really enjoyed that a lot. This was 4 stars for me. Okay, next, this is one of like the more memorable books that I read this year. It is called Ghost Eaters. This book is about a pill that can help you see the dead. So yes, it is a drug abuse allegory, but the plot of this book was essentially the main character, I cannot remember her name, but I think it was Erin, but she basically kind of like kept supporting her ex-boyfriend Silas, who was like in and out of rehab, and she eventually tried to set her foot down about it, but nothing like necessarily came out of it. And then Silas died, so she like felt a lot of regret for the way things ended, so she wanted to connect with him, which leads to the usage of the pills. I think that was literally called Ghost, which is why the book is called Ghost Eaters. But I was very captivated because of like the very grotesque aspects of it. It very quickly like spiraled down like a rabbit hole of just pure insanity and pure like craziness with the way that it was going. It went down like a very cultish pathway that just like increasingly got worse because of all these different aspects and stuff. And okay, for some reason books that I read, they randomly end with cannibalism that I never expect. And like, if you know me, like, you know, like one of my favorite movies is Bones and All. But so it's like I'm like chill with like the cannibalism aspects being within like media and stuff. Also, it still does depend on how it's depicted, but I'm like just like it's there. But just for some reason it keeps happening. Like there's another book in my list that also happened, and then there's just cannibalism. But this book I really enjoyed. This was a 4 stars out of 5. Very disgusting. There's one scene that I remember very deeply. Not scene, one like kind of segment that I remember very deeply, where like, oh my god, she like threw up, and there was a bunch of like ghosts like licking up her throw up. It was very nasty and very gross, but very enjoyable. I liked this book. 4 stars. Okay, the next book that I read was Project Hail Mary. I literally just finished this like 2 days ago. I was very captivated by this book from the get-go. I was actually asked to read this book by a friend who watches my videos, so that's cool. He also read this, and I thought it was really intelligent. It was a really fun sci-fi book to read. I really liked that this book was digestible. That's what it is. It had a lot of very scientific aspects, and I'm not like too well versed with science, but it was a lot of science that was still understandable and still enjoyable, even if you're not like into science, or if you're not into like physics, or if you're not into the way like forces and like gravity and acceleration and all that fun stuff. So I thought it was very well written in that aspect, and I really love this book actually. There's a character in it that I love so much. I love the character so much, and I cannot go into spoilers. Rocky, ride or die, hands down my favorite character in this book, but there aren't like too many options either. I really love this character. He was like so intelligent, and he was so smart, and there's like a whole portion of his story that like genuinely made me so upset like reading it. It was very sad to me. I thought this book was very amazing until the end. My friend said it himself. He said it was very well thought out until the ending. I completely agree. I did not enjoy the ending because like to me, like my biggest like critique with the ending was it felt like it took a lot of the character development back of the main character. Like it was and also it was a very anticlimactic ending that jumped to a new situation without like any like preparation for it, I guess. There was a very heroic event that came alongside with a lot of complications, lots of issues, right? But then it got like resolved in like one sentence, which is like very like disappointing to me. And then it jumped right into the ending, and the resolution is very like fast and very disappointing, I think. So for the ranking, I'd say it's really hard for me to choose because I feel like it's between like a 3.5 or 4 stars for me. Like that's my choices, but I feel like 3.5 discredits how much I actually enjoyed this book, and it would have been a 4.5, I think, with a better ending. I really genuinely think that I would have ranked this 4.5 stars out of 5 with a better ending. So I think a 4 stars feels okay to me. But again, ending, oh my god, fuck, the ending is very frustrating, and I talked about it with my friend already, so no divulging into more. But it's very worth the read. It's worth a read, like so deeply. Like I really enjoyed this book, and I'm not like too well versed, or like I'm not too into sci-fi or anything. Not that I'm not into it, but I just don't read it often. So this is a very fun like little like narrative book for my brain to read. Like I really enjoyed it, so I very much recommend this either way. This is me editing. I completely missed a book somehow, so this is me editing so I can talk about the book and add it in. So the book that I read was, I missed a lot. I missed 2 different books. Anyway, so this is that segment for the books that I missed. I read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and this is to me in the same vein as Picture of Dorian Gray, with how beautiful it really is, but it took me a long time to get into. It hurt a lot to read this book, and I had to take a lot of breaks, especially because it kind of just it was a complicated relationship with a Vietnamese mother, and it made me like very, very sad reading this. This book is a really popular quote out there, and I think it is the one that is, I miss you more than I remember you. But I think there were a lot of other quotes in that book that kind of hurt my feelings, but it's very beautifully written and very intimate to me, and I hold this book very dear to my heart, especially with its telling of a first-gen immigrant's experience, and especially in that alongside it being queer, and it explored a lot of those aspects. I really enjoyed this book. This book was really amazing. This book was 4 stars. But the next book was The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I have another book by him that I just bought, Fran and Zoe, I believe, and I will read that soon. Anyways, I actually really like Holden Caulfield a lot. He's really obnoxious, but I love him for it. Teenage Angst is just really fun for me to read, and it felt very personal to me. He's just a stupid kid with a huge persona, and he has to just kind of keep it up for the sake of like himself and his ego and all that jazz, and I empathize with him very deeply for it. This is really beautifully written because you can feel a lot of nuance and depth with this character, even when everything is in his perspective and it's from his word. I enjoy this book heavily, especially when I'm reflecting on it. Now that I'm reflecting on it, I would say this is 4 stars. Yeah. I'm very sorry for the discrepancies. I don't know what happened. I think I just got like a little scrambled while recording and all that jazz. So we're getting editing Jade instead of the camera Jade. Okay, next that I want to talk about was Bones and All. This is written by Camille DeAngelis. I read this book like way after like seeing the movie, and I like both of them in their own right. They do have some very significant differences within like plot and just the way like things unfolded. So I think because I watched the movie as well, like I think I kind of was in a position where I was just kind of comparing the book and the movie to each other, but like these adaptations are always different. But now I think I view it a lot differently. Like I think both of them are very beautiful in their own way, but I'll talk about the novel. I definitely enjoy the way Catastrophe came alongside like the main character Marin, like when romantic interests came too close into her life, or they just like, they kind of push their boundaries within her life, I guess, and then catastrophe. Gorgeous. I thought that was beautiful. It was very isolating. Like this book, like reading this book, it made me feel isolated and it was very terrible. So because I think my biggest issue when I was reading it was like I was comparing it to what I loved about Bones and All, and what I loved about Bones and All was the romance, and I loved the romance aspect, and I loved the relationship, and I loved the way love was depicted, and like, but it's very different in the book, and I think I didn't really respect it at the time that I read it. So initially I ranked it like 3 stars, but I think now in reflecting on it, especially for this video, I think it's really beautiful, and I think this deserves its 4 stars in my book. Okay, next I'm gonna be talking about Mating in Captivity, Unlocking Erotic Intelligence. This is by Ethel Perel. It talks a lot about how relationships are meant to be stable and peaceful and comfortable, but that can also dampen the experience with the relationship because people kind of need new things and change and difference to facilitate a healthy relationship. So it encourages a bunch of play and experimentation and fun with relationships. I like the way like she's very blunt about like the very blunt connection with sex and how it's not deemed taboo within this book, and like talking about it isn't taboo. I necessarily enjoyed this book a lot. I think it kind of taught me about like the way I kind of perceive relationships as well, because I have had my fair share of my own issues with like relationships and like how I was acting and how I was in a relationship. That this book kind of reflected back onto me that I was striving for a certain way relationships were supposed to be, and that kind of led to like issues with how I perceived like love and like relationships and how romance happened within my life, if that makes sense. I think this is just a good reflection. I think it's really interesting as well to explore like sex and just like eroticism, I guess, with relationships. Very enjoyable read. I would say this is a 4 stars for me. I think this book just taught me a lot more about relationships. Very enjoyable read. I liked it a lot. Okay, we're back into manga. This is Orange, the complete collection. I read the complete collection, volume 1 and volume 2. So I think this entire manga is just so amazing. I really love the art style and I had a lot of enjoyment reading it. I'm a very sensitive person. I'm very highly emotional, and I cry really easily, which is kind of explains why like reading this manga I bawled. Like I like cried like so hard because I just thought the way relationships, I just thought like the way like everything was depicted, like friendships, relationships, the way it all was, very beautiful, very well done. I really loved it, and it was just pure enjoyment the whole way through, and there are some aspects of it that I related to but I will not divulge upon, but I love this. I would say both of them are 4.25 stars out of 5, again increments of 25, but I really enjoyed these a lot. Like this was what set the precedent of how romance like manga should be for me, which is why Love and Focus, deeply disappointing. Very much enjoyed this though. Okay, next, this book I'm very excited to talk about. It is one of the most engaging, like immersive kind of plots that I've read. Perfume by Patrick Susskind. I love this book, and so essentially what the plot is that this guy was born with like some crazy like olfactory senses, and something about him is such a deterrent to other people because he has no scent. When he was born, he had like someone taking care of him, but she passed him off to another person because he had no scent. Like, you know how like people just have like an inherent smell to them, and that's just like very normal. Nothing, he didn't smell like anything. So he's kind of essentially invisible to people as well, and it plays a lot into how like scent is an underrated way people perceive others because it's not visual, it's not there physically, like it just happens, and it's very nasty and gross and disgusting, and for some reason, like I said, books I read end up with cannibalism that I don't expect. I cannot divulge, but just know that it's there. The writing is also very incredibly beautiful in the sense that you can feel the disgust like of it build up. It is some of the craziest things that like I've ever read. It's insane and beautiful and amazing, and I really enjoyed this book. I actually have very fond memories of it because in my AP Gov class we were doing like a speed dating type of thing, but you were just talking to new people and interacting with new people, and we had like kind of prompts and stuff, and then one of them was like, what was the last book you read? I talked about this book me and that person bonded so fast because it was just like a crazy book, and then we just talked about it and had a lot of fun talking about it. This book is incredibly memorable to me. I very much enjoy this book. This is our first 4.5 stars of the day. There are more for sure, but love this book a lot. I really do. It's just gorgeous. The next book that I want to talk about, this book is called Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis, and it talks about Palestine, Ferguson, and like the foundations of a movement, and it is a beautifully written book, and I could sing my praises for Angela Davis forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It would never be enough because it's just the way she writes is beautiful, and I think nonfiction is a really big way to kind of introduce yourself into further ideas, and Angela Davis is always going to be doing it for me. Love that so bad. This explored, like I said, Palestine, the pro-liberation movement, ways to build a movement through community, and how to set that up as a foundation. And it's, like I said, it set up like further ideas for me, like for example, for prison abolishment, and it talked about the prison industrial complex. It is not an incredibly like dense book. It's dense with information, but I wouldn't say it's incomprehensible or just like you need to read up on more stuff to understand it or read it. I completely understand this book. It was very digestible. I really love this book. I really did. I think this is a 4.5 stars for me. Very easy to read as well. So it's, like I said, very good introduction into like just exploring further ideas. Love. Okay, the next book I want to talk about is Tender as the Flesh by Augustina Basterica. I remember being very fascinated with this book, and the way that it played out felt very intelligent to me. I really liked the way that cannibalism was depicted within this book, like generally mostly depicted in this book as less of the feral like rabid type of thing, but as a part of society and how it was integrated within society through like processing plants and breeding people to be eaten. And this was because there was a virus with all like animals and stuff that prevented them from being able to be consumed without harming people. So then society developed in a way that like essentially supported this newfound change by, instead of eating animals, by eating humans. I thought it was very intelligent. I think the ending played out exactly how it needed to play to coincide with how disconnected the main character was with his role within the world, because he's at like sort of a leadership position with a processing plant, but he kind of feels disconnected from that because he's just trying to do what he needs to do to survive and to help himself and to support his like father as well. But when it came down to it, he crumbled for exactly what he wanted within the world, and he kind of did that to cope with like these feelings and experiences and trauma that he never actually kind of processed. I thought it happened exactly how it needed to happen. Really enjoyed it. This is a 4.5 stars in my book. Okay, next I'm going to be talking about The Picture of Dorian Gray. This was an incredibly intelligent and beautiful book, and it's going to be way too long to get into, but once I was into it, I consumed it incredibly fast. I think I hold a lot of really sentimental value with this book because at the time that I was reading this, I think this was like when I was starting to take reading more seriously. So this is like September of 2023. That's when I was trying to take reading more seriously, and this book was like one of the first books that I've ever annotated, like deeply annotated, and I don't do that often anymore, but I deeply annotated the hell of this book. And reading back on it, like if I look through it now, there's sticky notes that are littered within it with that kind of express like my mindset, my perspective at the time, and I think that's a very beautiful thing. This book holds a lot of very sentimental value to me. I think the way that it's written is very beautiful. I think the aspects of physical beauty and the way that is depicted and the way beauty is put on a pedestal within it is also something that deeply resonated with me, and I thought seeing the spiral of Dorian Gray was so captivating. Really enjoyed this. 4.5 stars out of 5. First up, we have Our Prison's Obsolete by Angela Y. Davis. This is one of my favorite books because it definitely helped me explore further radical beliefs. Like I said, nonfiction is gorgeous. Angela Davis is an amazing author, and consuming it was such digestible content that gave a very comprehensive detailing of prison abolishment, how prisons have been developed with roots of slavery essentially, etc., and just like other things like that, as well as the way like racism and sexism is perpetrated within like the prison systems. it also touches upon the idea of reforming rather than punishment, and kind of makes you imagine a world. I read this somewhere, but it makes you imagine a world where prisons are not real. And what I really liked about this book was it kind of emphasized the way people are disconnected from prisons, but it's so like well integrated into our society, and it's just like there, we're aware of it, but we don't really think about it. And it also, there was another thing that I talked about where prisons were built in an agricultural town in California. This is like a while back, and it essentially just like messed with like that town itself, and it's just very integrated within like our landscape as well. I thought that was a very interesting topic that I touched upon. Amazing author. Angela Y. Davis is amazing. This is one of the books that I very frequently reference when talking to people. Love this book. 5 stars. Fucking love this book so much. Finally, my final 5-star book of the year, The Fall by Albert Camus. This book is beautiful, and it's one of my favorite reads that I've read this year, obviously. And genuinely, I just love the self-reflection that came alongside with reading this book. I kind of thought a lot more about myself and the way I kind of went about the world, the things that I've experienced, the way I've treated other people, and like my actions, and just how I've been before, and what the things that I've done and how I've acted. But yeah, this book is like kind of this book is in the perspective of a guy who's listening to another guy kind of talk about everything that he genuinely thinks and feels, because he's a drunk man at the bar, and he's so purely honest, and this is everything to me, and it made me think a lot about myself. I had a lot of journal entries after finishing this that was purely like just introspective, and I was just thinking about myself and the way I went about the world and how I was as a person. I think a big thing that I thought about when reading this book was just the way a lot of people kind of maintain a facade, whether it's so deeply disconnected from them as a person or it still holds roots within them, but there's a facade that people keep up and a persona that people have because, well, that's, people kind of want to control the way they're perceived, and they want to be viewed highly. I think one big quote from this book that I cannot rattle off the top of my head, but the general idea was like, you kind of seek guidance from other people who think the same as you, or think in like who don't value as deeply, because you don't want to be criticized, you don't want to be judged for the way that you think. You want to kind of, in a sense, be supported for what you say and encouraged in your criticisms. Nope, not encouraged in your criticisms, but encouraged for the way that you believe and the beliefs that you maintain and what you hold. I thought that was very beautifully written. I think this book is just very amazing. I loved it so much, and that is why I picked up more books by Camus that I'll eventually talk about. Anyways, yeah, 5 stars for me, if it wasn't obvious. Okay, that's it for this video. I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to me rant about books for however long this video ends up being. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support in general. I'm forever grateful for all of my friends who kind of like watch my stuff and listen to my things, and I think I'm like just forever grateful because all of my friends have been so incredibly supportive. And I hope that this kind of lasts within the new year, and I'm sure that I will end up in front of the camera again chatting about whatever I have to say about the world and whatever I have to say about myself. So anyways, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Much love.